Our guests today are the Vicious Brothers, Colin Minihan and Stuart Ortiz.
The Vicious Brothers are the writing-directing collaboration between two 25-year-old filmmakers who first met through a filmmaking web forum in 1999 and bonded through their shared love of horror and sci-fi films, along with a mutual hatred of film school.
Interesting. Together, they've written 4 feature film scripts and collaborated on dozens of media projects. Their debut feature film, Grave Encounters, has recently acquired domestic distribution through Tribeca Film and had its world premiere at the 2011 Tribeca Film Festival.
The trailer for the film, which they produced themselves, quickly went viral on the internet and gathered 1.5 million YouTube hits in only 3 months. It now has close to 21 million hits.
Grave Encounters follows Lance Preston and the crew of Grave Encounters, a ghost hunting reality television show, shooting an episode inside the abandoned psychiatric hospital where unexplained phenomenon has been reported for years.
In order to play up for the cameras and audience, the group voluntarily locked themselves inside the building for the night and begin a paranormal investigation, capturing everything on camera. They quickly realize that the building is more than just haunted, it is alive, and it has no intention of ever letting them leave.
Please welcome to Film Courage, via telephone, Colin Minihan and Stuart Ortiz. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, we're doing great. How are you?
Good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Doing well. Doing very well.
There
Good.
they both are. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
connected to the Vicious Brothers. You can connect with Stu and Colin on Twitter at Vicious Bros. You can also make sure to follow at Grave Encounters. We do love to read tweets on the air. Our handle at Film Courage. The hashtag for the show is hashtag Film Courage, and you can follow the stream on tweetchat.com.
All right. Well, again, thanks so much for joining us today, and we're so impressed with your trailer and the following that you've gained. We want to just jump right in and ask you just real quickly, which film is scarier, Paranormal Activity or Grave Encounters?
Dude, it's all you.
No pressure.
Obviously, Paranormal Activity is way scarier.
Okay.
Paranormal Activity's made a lot more money, so it must be scarier. I don't know.
And it's forgive us. It's hard not to draw up comparisons to Paranormal Activity. You know, when you see sort of a found footage film like this. You know, one thing we want to jump into right off the bat is what is the best moment that this film has brought to you guys? You know, is it something that happened in production? Is it the day the trailer went viral? Is it the world premiere at Tribeca? You know, what is the moment that sort of made making this film worth all the effort that you guys have put into it?
Oh man, that's a question. Yeah, I don't know if there was one event.
You know,
I think for me,
go ahead.
Like it's like the theatrical experience. It's always really important, really awesome to see it. So just doing festivals and seeing old men curled up in their seats crying while they're watching it because they're so scared they can't keep their eyes on the screen is always very satisfying. Kind of conducting the audience like that with a scary movie and getting them involved. So definitely for me, I think the whole like seeing it in the big screen or whatever is always a lot of excitement there.
Mm. So the audience reaction rather than sort of the accolades is more important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about the audience. It's about them being, enamored within that setting for that hour and a half that they're there for.
Interesting.
I hate to bring this up. I mean, the film got turned, it's Sundance season right now, and the film did get turned down by Sundance and other big name festivals, but that was before you received word from Tribeca, or afterward you received word from Tribeca and you had your world premiere there. What was your sort of state of mind or mental attitude when these the festivals before Tribeca kind of turned you guys away? What were you guys thinking then, and were you thinking towards self-distribution as an option for the way you guys would release the film?
We got rejected from other festivals. We were definitely bummed out, and it's always discouraging because you want to try to get into one of those top-level tier festivals if you can, because obviously that just helps your shot at getting the film out there and getting more visibility to the film and helping you get distribution possibly. So we were bummed out, but we felt like, you know,
I don't even remember really what the film was submitted to, because we didn't really handle the festival submissions. Like, we signed on with a foreign sales visit pretty quickly, ArcLight in LA, that represents a ton of movies and takes them to various markets and so forth.
I think we went to Sundance and we went to Toronto.
Yeah, it might have been. I'm not sure. But then the guy at Tribeca is much like in the same vein as Sundance now, where they're kind of doing their own distribution as well. Like, obviously there's the Sundance now, and then there's Tribeca Film now. So it's kind of interesting to see these film festivals buying the movies that they're actually, you know, they're using the festival in a way to launch their own content as well as to premiere new stuff. So it's important to be able to get into kind of any of those major festivals in order to get seen by the right people. But I don't think, not with this film, we never really talked about self-distribution. I mean, I think in order for self-distribution to be really effective, you need to have quite a big following. Maybe it'll work if you're someone like Kevin Smith that has like 1 million Twitter followers, and you can kind of cut out the middleman and go directly to your audience. It's kind of a no-brainer in that scenario. You know, if it's like Louis or something selling a comedy show or whatever, it's like he's already got such a huge following that reaching that audience is made a lot simpler. But I think if you're starting fresh and you don't have that following, doing that on is, you know, going to consume years of your life, and once you're done making a film, I think you've already put so much of yourself into it that, you know, trying to sell it is a whole other animal. So I don't think
it's interesting to hear you say that, because, you know, when you release a trailer online, it goes viral, over 1 million views. I mean, a lot of people we talk to don't have that kind of success or that kind of demand of people, you know, viewing their trailer and potentially wanting to see their film. You know, how do you react? How do you react to that side of it? Because there are people that do want to see this film.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, YouTube, like, being a breakout viral thing on there is obviously super challenging and kind of random, but you really need to work at that sort of thing too, you know. When I think, like, Stu and I cut the trailer ourselves before we actually had a U.S. distributor in place, and I think we were just bored, and we were kind of just like, you know, this isn't happening quick enough, let's just stick it online and let's see what happens, and you know, see if some momentum can build, people will get to notice it that way. So that was really our motivating factor. Putting the trailer online, it wasn't like, you know, YouTube doesn't have the buy now button and you can stick right next to the thing. So it's kind of hard to, even if kids are seeing it on there, they're most likely gonna go see if it's available on Pirate Bay 5 seconds later.
How did you drum up interest in the trailer? I mean, how did you know, what did you do to kind of make it get so many hits, or did you not do anything? You just put it out there and it took off?
We just pretty much put it out there. We put it up on our own account, and it really wasn't getting that much traffic. But then this other guy that has a channel on YouTube that has a bunch of horror trailers, it's called Horror Nymphs, who already has kind of a following. He basically reposted it onto his channel, and then that's when it blew up because he already had some followers.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think that additionally, though, there was, you know, he was like emailing all the major blog sites that are independently run, and we were getting a fair bit of press at the time. I mean, like, maybe 3 months after it had been on, the Tribeca Film Festival thing started happening, so then, you know, we were doing a lot of press for that, so I was able to gain momentum there as well.
Okay.
We got on Twitch Film, and we got on Ain't It Cool News, and Bloody Disgusting, and sites like that. I think definitely drew awareness.
And you guys approached them, you emailed them, or did they come to you? We're just wondering how, like, because it's taking that proactive.
Well, I think it's mostly like the publicist from like the festival or whatever was, you know, doing the round.
Yeah, it's really tough because, like, when we didn't have a distributor signed on, we had been hitting up Bloody Disgusting pretty much like every day, just being like, hey, check out our trailer, would you mind like posting this or whatever. They pretty much ignored us completely, I think, until we actually had a U.S. distributor on board, and then that completely just changed the game. Then, like, overnight, they were, you know, posting about it.
Right. Built credibility. Now, you both have...
probably ignoring us because we turned down their sales. We tried to buy the movie.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, now you both have a fascination with the other world, and we understand, Colin, that you almost have sort of a mediumistic quality to you where spirits are drawn to you, or you're perceptive enough to pick up on them.
Rumor?
Well, I thought we've heard it in another interview, so we're just curious how that has taken place. You're just you're sensitive enough to feel other entities in the room, or they're drawn to you?
It's few and far between when something like that does happen, but I have been known to experience a few hauntings in my life.
Okay.
That are kind of, they blow my mind, and they make me more attracted to the subject matter of ghosts and making a ghost film, because it's just something that I don't understand, but something that I can't explain that, I've encountered a few times in my life.
Okay. Well, are there stories that either one of you can...
Yeah, there definitely is. I mean, like, there's this time when I was in San Jose staying at this old house shooting a music video, and in the middle of the night there's all these crazy sounds, and I heard, like, just things that my eyes are wide open and there's nobody in the room with me, but I hear someone running along the wood floor panels right in front of me, and hear a bang on the wall and look towards the bang, and there's nobody there, and learned later that there was this whole thing that happened at the house. So just stuff like that,
You had a baby, didn't you? You had like a baby crying.
Yeah,
right?
I heard a baby, and I heard like this shaking, rattling sound coming up and down the hallway, and I couldn't figure out for the life of me what the hell this was. And then, like, today I asked I'm like, straight up to the owner of that, I'm like, this place is completely haunted. Tell me what happened. And turned out, like, a couple owners ago, there was a baby, and the father put like a rattling, like a shaker toy that's like a double-sided thing, but he didn't notice that when he put it in the movie that it was like broken in the middle, and the baby ended up getting the thing lodged in its throat, and the dad tried to get it out, but every time he tried to reach in to get it out, he just kept pushing it further down, and the baby died. And so I'm hearing the remnants of this dad and his baby in the middle of the night. So there's definitely some weird stuff in the world.
Wow. So we understand that the two of you have had cameras in your hands for most of your lives. Can you tell us about the first time that you picked up a camera? And why?
I don't know, man. We both have. I mean, I pretty much, like, literally grabbed my parents' old VHS camera, like, when I was probably 4 or 5, and just started. It was, like, such an old camera that it literally was, like, tethered to the VCR by, like, a cable. Like, it wasn't really portable. So the first 2 years or 3 years of movies I shot are all, like, from one angle, pretty much, like, in my living room, my parents' living room. But, back in the day, I was just shooting, like, puppet shows. Yeah, a lot of puppet shows. Literally, I was, like, 4 years old. I would start, like, just shooting puppet shows, and then, like, it just went on from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar thing. I think I was probably, like, 8 years old, and I discovered my mom's video camera, and, I was really into, like, action movies and stuff at the time, and playing guns with my friends, and we'd just recreate different scenes from different movies basically every day after school, and it kind of never stopped doing that to a certain extent. So there you go.
And when did that switch happen for you guys, where you said, you know what, this isn't just fun and games, this isn't just a hobby anymore, like, I want to do this. This is kind of what I'm passionate about, this is what I love. Like, was there a switch, where that became the case?
I think that there was definitely, there was a moment where, me and Colin had been friends for a while, and we'd talked online, and we'd also met in real life a couple times, and, we kind of collaborated one time. Colin was like the DOP on like this short film that I was trying to make, and we were kind of like working together on stuff like that, but at some point we just kind of started talking about the idea of just writing a script. It wasn't even, let's make a movie. It was just like, let's just try to write a script. So we went up to Vancouver Island, where Colin's mom lives, basically, went down into her basement and just started smoking a bunch of weed and just, like, tripping out down there, listening to movie soundtracks, and we ended up writing basically our first feature-length script. And unfortunately, it was probably because how just stoned we were and how crazy we were, we ended up being this thing that was just way too ambitious to really do at the time. In terms of money, it was just going to be too expensive. And then, so we basically kind of went back to the drawing board and came up with another script, and again, it ended up being way too ambitious.
Anymore.
That helped. That got the budget down a bit. Even that script again was too ambitious, and then I think we even wrote a third one. I can't remember what it was, but at some point we basically said, okay, this is ridiculous. We need to actually write something that, we can make for like no money. And then we had toyed a long time with the idea of, should we do a found footage thing? Should we do maybe something like along the lines of Blair Witch Project? But we didn't really want to do that because it's such an opposite kind of spectrum of, traditional narrative filmmaking that we love. And it's way more just, it looks like crap, and it's supposed to have this like kind of amateur feel to it. So we kind of had avoided it, I think, for a long time. But then at some point it was just like, well, we had heard it. We actually hadn't even seen Paranormal Activity yet when we wrote the script for Grave Encounters, although we'd heard of it, and we'd seen like the trailer and seen some buzz about it, so we knew what the idea was. But it wasn't even out yet. we were really more influenced by, I think, like Blair Witch Project, and there's a couple of these other movies. There's like this great found footage alien abduction film from like the mid-90s that's called the McPherson Project, where there's like this family on Thanksgiving, and like they end up getting terrorized by aliens and stuff, and we were kind of more just influenced by that, and obviously these ghost hunting shows. But that was definitely the moment where our mentality really switched to just the practical reality of it, of that we want to make something, but we don't have very much money, so we need to write something that we can actually do.
Yeah, totally. Like we've been trying to get money to do one of our other scripts, and it's just like, not having a true understanding of just the business of film, and being more looked at as, especially myself, looked at exclusively as like a music video director, because that's what I've been doing for the past, 10 years or whatever. So I think it's important, we just had to look at it from a different perspective and say, you know what, no one's going to help us make this but ourselves, so we should work with this idea because we know that we can achieve it for, at least, the money that's in our bank account. If we really had to do just that. So that's why I think that was our motivating factor to making a found footage for sure.
Well, you guys both saved up, what, $30,000 each? Isn't that what you said in another interview? I mean, that's a nice chunk of change.
Yeah, and then we had another investor who spent like a lot more than that to help us finish the film, because obviously you can get so far in production, but then ultimately when you sign a distribution contract and stuff, you need to be able to hand over all the deliverables that add up into the hundreds of thousands pretty quickly. So by that point we were well on our way though, and able to get the rest of the money.
Any budget tips you can pass along? I mean, $30,000 is a nice chunk of change.
Well, I think that I think in this day and age, there's actually a really great article that Edward Burns does an interview recently, just talking about the state of filmmaking and video on demand and stuff like that. But like, I'll use his film as an example because it's even better. But with his new film Newlyweds, he basically just did the low budget union agreement, same deal as we did for actors. So you're paying actors like $100 a day, but you're also giving them a piece of the back end if the film ever goes on to make money or get a distribution deal. But I mean, cameras and stuff are so cheap in this day and age. You can go buy a 5D and some lenses for a few $1,000s, and all of a sudden you've got yourself a camera package that's, as long as it's in the right hands, is completely applicable to shooting a motion picture with, essentially. So it's really just a matter of your own personal drive and having a script that, you're not shouting down streets doing car chases. You're working within the reality that you're presenting to the audience, and keeping the scale of the production smaller. But keeping scale small sometimes is a good thing. So sometimes re-looking at things and being like, how can we approach this from a cheaper perspective ultimately forces you to become more creative. So I think there's a lot of independent films being made for for similar kind of prices, and they all kind of end up around $100,000 by the end of it, even if they're, you know, penny pinching and not casting crew or whatever. It's just delivering a movie is really expensive, so I think that you can't really get away from spending that kind of money, but you can definitely shoot production really cheaply with the technology that's out there and just using natural light, you know.
Well, I want to go back to when you guys did meet on this filmmaking forum online. I mean, how did you know that you could trust one another? It's hard in this day and age. You meet people online and they seem cool, and then you meet them in person and it's just you see they have an agenda. So how did you know over the years that, okay, I can trust this person and we can work together?
It pretty much just started because I think, you know, we were the only people that we had met on this filmmaking forum that I guess were kind of the same age, but really just that we were really genuinely impressed by the other person's work. Like, there's a lot of people on. It was this one. It was like basically I think it was the original filmmaking forum that existed on the internet. It was this forum called Like a Story, and it vanished. I don't know, in 1999 or 2000 or something like that. It's long gone. But that's where we met, and yeah, I think it's just like we were just impressed by what we were doing. So there was a mutual respect, and then when we were always talking online too, just chatting, and even through that we just kind of clicked, and then when we finally met in real life a couple years later, it was just like, you know, we just clicked. I think, you know, pretty instantly. It was like, yeah, I get this guy. We speak the same language
to each other before we even met too, though. Right? Like there were years of just like talking on instant messenger, and like, you know, I remember my mom walking by thinking I was like talking to some pervert online or whatever, and I'm like, oh, it's just Stu, and she's like, who the fuck is that?
That's awesome.
So, you know, like I think after a certain while we realized that we were kind of thinking on a very similar wavelength when we talked about movies that we liked and movies that we were interested in making and just stuff like that. And then finally meeting in person. I think after we met in person, it was like, you know, another 3 years or whatever until we decided to actually do something cool together. So yeah,
over time,
definitely a slow burn.
Right.
Before we even met, Colin had been working on this film that he was making, this thing called Choice, and we would stay up pretty much all night, and he would send me little scenes and be like, what do you think? And I'd be like, you should make this a little bit longer, make this shot 10 frames longer, do this, do that, or whatever, and just going back and forth. And then there was a point where Colin proposed the idea of, and we hadn't met yet in real life, but that we could meet on screen. So I had actually like painted a blue screen wall, like in one of the rooms in my houses. My dad didn't even know I was going to do that. He just came home one day and discovered that I'd painted an entire wall blue, and he was not too stoked, but he went along with it. But anyway, with a blue screen, you can basically shoot a shot of whatever on the blue screen, and then you can composite that into another shot. So Colin filmed a shot of him walking by the camera. Yeah, and then I filmed a shot of me on the blue screen walking by the camera and kind of acting like he had knocked into me or whatever, like looking at him. And then I sent him the file, and then he composited that in, and then that's basically how we first met, was on screen. So There you go.
Oh, very cool. Well, I understand that you both have a mutual hatred of film school. Did either of you attend film school? Did you have a bad experience there? What's your argument against film schools?
Yeah, we both went to film school. I think that just was a soundbite that we used in the bio just to sound crazy. Hey, film school. I went to an art school for 1 year. I didn't like it at all, but I mean, to be fair, super, very experimental, very liberal, very art-minded film program. And I mean, like, on the extreme side of the spectrum. I mean, they would show us like films where it would be like literally 20 minutes of like white, with just like a scratching sound effect, literally. And that would be like someone's film, and then people would talk about it really seriously afterwards. And I was only there for a few months before I was just looking around and being like, man, I do not belong in here. I want to be making like, Terminator 2 or something like that. And then so I just kind of basically stopped going to class and started working on making this other film, just kind of this action adventure film with some other guy that was going there. And I remember I would show parts of it in class, and all the students just were like, man, this is just Hollywood bullshit. Like, this is so, like, derivative and shitty and stuff like that. And, like, I just had no one there that Huh?
There was some dope stuff you were doing too. I think it's really discouraging. It can be really discouraging when you're put in an environment like that where, you know, you're kind of cast as an outsider because what you're doing is a lot more mainstream than the other people. And from my film school, I mean, my perspective is like, I just remember the first day of class and like basically schooling the editing teacher. Like he was like trying to teach us something, some like wipe transition referencing like Ocean's 11 or something like that. And he was trying to tell us how it was done, and I had to make him go frame by frame and correct him as to how it was done because he wasn't teaching it right. So, and he, you know, he was like, "Oh crap, I wasn't," and that was like the first day of school. So it was just I'd been working on my own stuff so much and taught myself just, you know, everything that I knew at the time. So going into the program and you know, the faculty wasn't very supportive and the dean was a total bitch. It was just a downer because you're there and you're like, they're teaching kids how to like hit the red button on a camera and what exposure is, and like just like wasting money on all this shit that I've already taught myself. So I think if you've already picked up a camera, a much better investment. And the other thing is just kids don't finish anything once they're out of film school. Like they have like this, they train you so much through the education system that it's important to get good grades and kind of carry that forward into post-secondary and film school, obviously. So you get all these kids that are just doing things to try and achieve a letter grade, but then if you graduate the program, they think that, you know, a certificate is going to be worth something. It's obviously not, but that's the sham of film school in general, is that they convince these kids that don't know anything about filmmaking or anything about the industry that they're going to get jobs with a piece of paper. And I'd see it all the time, and I knew right away. Like, I knew when I went there that it's not how it worked. But I went there anyways just because I grew up in such a small town, and I needed to get the hell away from it to move to cities. So the one positive thing was just being around people that were into film, and that was kind of the first time in my life, other than knowing Stu, that I was surrounded by other people that wanted to make film, even if they didn't know what they were doing, and they're just like that was a positive experience from it. But just being there, and you know, they never like going back to what I was saying, how they're working for a letter grade. It's really disappointing because you see like 50 kids graduate, and you know, 2 of them end up working in the film industry, and the rest of them end up working at McDonald's or something like that, because they really never knew what they wanted to do in the first place. So they never really had that drive.
For sure. I think film school is the only use it has is if you just have no technical training whatsoever in how to do anything with film, how to shoot a scene, how to light stuff, etc. Then film school is
Internet's for though. Fucking open up Google. Google
yeah.
it, man. You don't pay $40,000.
But I mean, the reality of the industry is it's so much more than that. I mean, you know, there's a whole business side that they never talk about, and I really think honestly, the only way that you can really learn that stuff is just to do it and to experience it, you know?
Do you think having that degree almost hinders you in some way from taking risks that
I think
you kind
of show it. I think if you maybe it's from taking risks.
Yeah, because they have that piece of paper and they're like, hey, you know what? I put in all this time and this money and I have to get this quote unquote sort of real film job, whereas more the DIY sort of rebels go out and do it themselves because they have less riding on the fact that they didn't have all that.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think just for most kids, you know, they're probably perfectly happy getting a camera operating at the local news station for the next 10 years. Well, film school's good for that kind of thing, but I mean, I'm giving a biased example. I can only speak for the film school that I was at. I don't know, maybe UCLA's film school or whatever is amazing, and New York Film Academy is awesome. I don't know, I haven't been there. So, you know, from our perspective, I think that it's a bit of a joke. So, and I definitely agree that it probably makes kids not want to take those risks, and they don't really encourage those risks. At least none of the teachers that I had were, you know, showing us Rebel Without a Crew and telling us to just fuck film school, go make a movie. You know, they weren't saying that. They're selling the idea that you need this certificate, you need to show up and pay your tuition fees.
Sell your blood for medical tests. Yeah.
No, we are. I love getting into the film school debate here. We are on the line with the Vicious Brothers, Stuart Ortiz and Colin Minihan. Let's jump back into Grave Encounters, and really curious how you guys were able to get the psychiatric hospital as the primary location for the film.
Do you want to take this one?
Well, yeah, it's a location that we knew about. It's it's a well-known filming location here in Vancouver that has been shot at 1 million times for 1 million different things. X-Files has shot a bunch of episodes there, and I think it's one of the most heavily filmed at locations in Canada. So we knew about the location because
a lot of Colin control there too.
Yeah, Colin shot like a Papa Roach music video there and like a bunch of other videos. So it was just like when we came up with the idea for the film, we knew right away that we were going to shoot it there. That would be the place to do it. And we wrote the script based around the location and what we knew was there. So.
That's great.
We definitely wrote for the most production value, just knowing the location in and out. Like there's a scene in the film where they're hiding in this like room with all these decrepit bathtubs that are just strewn out all over the place, and it looks like it's probably our designs, but it's not. We wrote the scene just because we knew those bathtubs were in there, and it was an amazing looking spot. So
it's such a great location as well. And you're mentioning the building the script around what you knew you had. How detailed was the script that you wrote for the Grave Encounters? Because it is a found footage film, and with a film like this, you want to make it seem authentic. So I would believe that you'd want to leave room to have the actors be free and have improv. So can you talk about how detailed was the script? How far did you take that, and how much room was there for improv?
We wrote a full, pretty much 80-page script because, there's a couple of different approaches I think you can have to a found footage film. Like, I know that on Blair Witch Project, I don't think they literally had a shooting script at all. I think they had kind of a rough outline of kind of scenes and what was going to happen, but just in a real rough way. Mm-hmm. And those actors were literally out in the woods by themselves, filming everything themselves. And I think, from what I understand, is that the directors would leave them like little packages in areas because they had a GPS that would explain plot points, like new things that were going to happen, but then sometimes they would just outright surprise them and shit in the middle of the night. So it was very, very just, they were catching everything super candidly. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you can have a film like, what's an example? Something like Quarantine, which is the American remake of Wreck, which is, I'm assuming is completely scripted. Every single line is scripted. And I think, we kind of wanted to land somewhere in the middle. We knew that we needed to write a full script because, we were paying X amount of dollars for the location per day, so we couldn't just be kind of goofing off and not knowing what we were doing. So we knew we needed to have, a full script that we could go off as a framework, basically. But at the same time, we definitely went in there being really open to doing, improv.
How many cameras did you use?
A lot. The actors were rolling as well because, you were trying to create the reality television ghost hunting aesthetic that everyone's really familiar with, and it very much is a parody of those shows. If there's anyone listening that's seen those shows and is into them, it's basically, a group of ghost hunters. And we really wanted it to look and feel like that. So cameras are super cheap for that kind of thing because you're talking about shooting on like an HDV night vision camera for a lot of the scenes, and I think ultimately we probably had maybe 8 cameras on set, and sometimes all of them were rolling.
Oh wow! Jeez.
It's a lot of cameras to be looking at, but the primary camera. Either Stu or I was operating with an actor behind us, and we basically just rerun the scene from the other angles as well, with the actor fake filming or he was real filming, but we didn't have really time to put them through a proper crash course, so their cinematography was a bit jank, so we'd have to go in there and make sure that we got the stuff that we knew we needed, But yeah, even going back to the script, I think that when we wrote the script, it was really we left a lot of the scenes wide open for improv, and we just knew point A, B, C, and where it needed to go, and let the actors work out the rest. And it was interesting because actors are obviously give them that much freedom and they're just going to run wild with it, but we're able to control a lot of that because it's really a film built around jump cut, and you could use a portion of take 5 and a portion of take 1 and a portion of take 3, any good moment from any of these takes, and essentially make it feel like it was part of a oneer, really, but it just feels edited for time because it's you know, the edits are supposed to be kind of jarring and in that jump cut fashion. So you're able to get away with a lot of bad improv and kind of circumventing your way through it and getting around it. So.
Well, you know, and you mentioned 8 cameras. I mean, how much footage did you guys end up with overall, and how long did the edit take? I mean, how many hours were you putting in sort of each day in post on the edit?
I think we must have literally had like 70 hours or something of footage. It was completely ridiculous. And some of the footage was
shooting ratio in the history of film.
Yeah. There would be times where the actors would, you know, forget that their camera was running and go to like for lunch. So we'd be looking at a tape and it'd literally be like 45 minutes of it just sitting like against a wall or something. So it was a huge job because we pretty much had to just sit there and like watch almost every second of it just to try to pull any moment that we could that was any good, but that definitely made it take a lot longer.
Because like a lot of those actors' cameras weren't even slated properly too, so you're trying to sync them to sound as well, and you're just like, oh,
right. Fuck. You're trying to figure out what the hell the scene is. They're like, what is this scene? What the hell was this scene? What were we shooting here? What is this? What is the footage of?
Mm-hmm. You know, so how long were you guys spending in post? I mean, how long was each day? I mean, were you guys putting in 12-hour days in the edit bay, or?
We edited the movie. Usually. Yeah, like when we pretty much did the movie, like I literally just moved kind of basically to Canada and just slept on Colin's couch in his apartment for, I don't know, a year and a half or whatever it was until we got the movie done. So we were basically living together and we had set up the computer in the middle of his living room and would just edit day in and day out constantly. Now, how long was it that we were in post?
I think we cut initially probably for like, you know, we had a rough cut that ran like 2.5 hours, like 2 weeks after shooting the movie, basically, and then we just kept fine-tuning it, and I think probably after like a month or so, we took some time away from it, and, you know, I think you need to, if you're involved with the film for that long, you kind of need to be able to back away from it and then come back to it with a fresh perspective. Months of editing actors' footage that you could barely tell what was going on, and just trying to, there's like, with these sound footage movies, you're really trying to sell realism, and Stu said it earlier, how you're trying to create that amateur feel, so that's why we approached it like that, and we knew that from, you know, our primary cameras that there'd be great stuff, but if you were to hold on them for too long, it just starts to feel too cinematic, so it was important that we allowed our actors to basically film whatever the hell they wanted to, so that even if it was something crappy that you would usually cut out of a picture, you could shift it in and you could help sell the realism of the situation and just with the raw feel of camera operating skills, basically.
So after post, what did you do to restore your backs?
Our backs were all messed up because we didn't even set up a desk, I think, because we were too excited. We just wanted to start cutting, so we were like, okay, we'll just temporarily use this coffee table as the place, and then we'll get a real desk in here in a little bit, and then the real desk never came. So it was just a coffee table the entire time.
I see.
A couch and a coffee table.
There you go.
And a good chiropractor afterwards.
And just pissing my neighbors off too, probably. Like, because Stu and I did a rough sound mix as well, and we're like, you know, playing demon growl sounds at full volume at like 3 in the morning, like on a loop, trying to like shoot them or whatever.
Wow.
Like, this is fucking gonna just kill people in here.
What I'm wondering is, with a collaboration like the two of you have, how do you know when one person should sort of steer the ship and then the other should take a back seat? Do you ever switch roles? Is there a division of labor? Does one of you tire of the project and the other one sort of carry the torch and then you pass it back and forth?
I mean, it's figuring it out.
Yeah, I guess we're still figuring it out. It seems, I don't know. People ask about the collaboration. It's kind of just like, it just sort of works. I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, I think part of it is the fact that we co-write together, and that's a real collaborative, intense process because, literally sometimes we'll write a script and we'll be going back and forth over just like dialogue, over like a few like lines of dialogue back and forth. So we're very much, by the time the script is done, it's very like collaborative and it's both of our visions. And then, we discuss everything, all the shots, how we want to do it. And it's, we trust each other and respect each other so much at this point. I think initially when we started like working on script one, there was a lot more haggling and fighting and stuff like that. But at this point, it's just kind of like, the catchphrase we always use is if someone has another idea that what the other doesn't agree with, it's just like, all right, well, sell me on it then. Sell me on the idea. How is the idea better? Okay. And then you give the other person a chance and they can break it down and then you go, yeah, okay, you're right. My idea does suck. Your idea is better. Or, nah, it doesn't really work, And we always end up seeing eye to eye, so.
Yeah, and I think as far as actually being on set when time is of the essence and you might not have time to shoot everything two different ways if you're eye to eye. It's important during pre-production to plan and do your homework because that's what filmmaking is. Filmmaking is your homework before you're on set. Like if you don't have that, you're screwed basically, So it's like a matter of really being inside one another's head, and we're both very vocal on set. It isn't like one of us hides behind the monitor and the other directs the movie. It's like we're constantly whispering in one another's ears about everything, basically. Every decision is a joint decision, and we're constantly being forced to sell one another on why this approach works, why this approach works, why this approach works, and seeing eye to eye. And it can be. I think it can become a tiring process if you don't work closely enough before you're on set shooting. So you need to be able to have the same vision going into it for sure.
Thank you for touching on that. And we want to come back to this Tribeca distribution deal, because our understanding is you do have a deal with Tribeca Film. So, were you guys offered the deal before the festival, and why did you decide to go with this offer?
I don't remember. Was it before the festival or after the festival? I can't remember.
I think we were negotiating it all the way up to it. Probably. I don't know, but I think if you look at their slate this year, I mean, they're getting a lot of really cool movies. They got Tony Kaye's Attachment coming out, and they're kind of there's a lot of these distribution companies that have really changed their models, just their distribution model, because the art house theater is sort of in a way dying. So I think they're resorting to a new strategy of releasing movies, and it's called day and date, where they'll put it out a limited theatrical run, and they'll do video on demand simultaneously, and it kind of eliminates that window system that Hollywood loves. There's IFC is doing a lot of day and date now, and obviously Magnolia and Magnet run. I think pretty much all of Magnet's stuff is day and date, whether it's out, it might even be out on iTunes on a premium rental before it's available on other formats. So there's a lot of experimenting going on with the way that films are released, and VOD is great because it's growing so much right now. I think the whole piracy issue is another thing you can easily stem this conversation to. But if you make the content super convenient for the consumers, which is what Tribeca and Magnet and these companies are trying to achieve, then people are less say there's a movie that's in theater and I may not want to see it until it's on video because I just don't want to go to the theater and see it. Well, if it's a Tribeca movie or an IFC thing or a Magnet thing, I can have that choice. If that choice isn't my option isn't to torrent it and watch like a canned version of it because it's only available in theater. The fact is that I can rent it right away on my video on demand via whatever format you're into, Comcast or something like that. So I think that these newer companies are pretty smart by creating this day and date thing, but at the same time, obviously, I love the theatrical experience, and I hope that doesn't hurt that revenue stream, but it definitely does make films available to a wider audience faster, and that's a good thing for a filmmaker because, people's televisions are awesome these days, and the experience that I get sitting in my place watching a movie is arguably almost as good as the experience I get most of the time in the theater, just because, it's a very youth-oriented crowd, and there's a lot of, bright text message screens going off or whatever. But
people kicking your chair.
So really, yeah, sure, kicking chairs, spilling drinks on you.
Right.
And it's just, it's obviously a lot more expensive to go out, and especially if you're, older and you've got a family and you need to hire a babysitter or something like that to leave the house. It's like, do you really want to do that and to go see a romantic comedy that is out? You're probably more likely to want to rent it on your TV. So I think that the day and date strategy that Tribeca has is pretty ingenious.
Yeah, and just as we wrap up here, we have 1 minute left, but we just wanted to find out, do you feel pressure to exceed the success that you've had with Grave Encounters? I mean, most of the people that we speak with, they come nowhere close to what you guys have achieved, and it's really amazing, but I'm sure that there's also another side to achieving all of that, because then there's that pressure to keep up with the same momentum that Grave Encounters had.
Yeah, I mean, I think we feel... we feel pressure, and we are, we're working on it right now to try to, we want to go 10 times bigger and better with the next film. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Colin, final words from you?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not putting pressure on yourself and you're just complacent, then life is kind of boring. I think Stu and I, we stack just an unbelievable amount of pressure on ourselves to be working on stuff and to trying to take it to the next level, to the point that it's a joke and that we drive each other completely insane doing that. So I think even though, it's a negative thing to get so crazy about it, but at the same time it's super positive because our drive is just through the roof.
Great stuff. Well, we've been speaking with the filmmaking duo, the Vicious Brothers, Colin Minihan and Stuart Ortiz.
For more on the Vicious Brothers, please visit theviciousbrothers.com, at Vicious Bros, and at Grave Encounters on Twitter, graveencountersthriller.com, facebook.com/Grave Encounters, and on IMDb.
Yeah, and thanks so much, Colin and Stu, for joining us today. Looking forward to hearing about those next projects and
absolutely
all that goes with it.
Yeah, it's been a joy sitting back and listening to you guys. Just listening to some young folks who really have a handle on their work and really have a handle on the business. Thank you guys, for sharing your experiences with us today.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
We look forward to being here with you next Sunday, and we will have one of the films from the Film Courage 2011 must-see list. If you want to be in this industry, you have to see the film My Big Break. We can't tell enough people about it. It's great. It's by director Tony Ziera, and also actor Chad Lindbergh will be with us to talk about the film. It was made years ago under a different name, and then it was brought back after Hollywood did not want people to see it. It's a documentary that captures celebrity in the making and the unsettling effects of fame on 5 friends who share a house in Hollywood.
Yeah, those 5 friends were Wes Bentley, Brad Rowe, Greg Fawcett, Tony Ziera, and Tony Ziera is going to call into the show, and Chad Lindbergh is going to be here in studio. For more information on My Big Break, please visit mybigBreakmovie.com. This is one we've been talking about forever.
We sure have.
We can't wait.
Very excited.
We can't wait.
Yeah, and until next Sunday, have a great week.